This is known as a closed type of circulatory system. Otherwise, when we see the cockroach, we found that the blood flows through the body cavity, irrigating various tissues, organs like that. So with this particular type of circulatory system, we will call it as an open type. And coming to the hemocoel of the insects is divided into three sinuses regions due to the presence of two fibromuscular septa or diaphragms composed of the connective tissues. So in your textbooks, the detailed diagram is there where you will find the in this diagram also you can see the same thing what you will have in your textbook. That is wherever I have kept the arrow mark, that is an dorsal tracheal trunk region where we are seeing uh, the vessel, dorsal vessel carrying the particular type of hemocoel in this particular visceral branches also we can see. And also we can see the, when you keep the diagram in front of you, then you will understand the things very well. So whenever we, here I have shown the detailed diagram where we say that these are the ostia through which the respiration is carried out, and these are the lateral vessels, and this vessel we'll call it as an anterior vessel or dorsal vessel. So this vessel, when we have seen this particular in the diagrammatic figure, so this is an anterior vessel and these are the tubular hearts where we will see the circulation of this hemocoel in them. Coming to the closed type, we can see in the earthworm, the dorsal vessel and the ventral vessel, and these are the uh, ventral vessels which are carrying the from the dorsal vessel of the heart, this particular thing, and carrying the closed type of circulatory system, how the hemolymph is carried. So when we see this particular diagram also, you will get the how it can be divided into small branch of vessels in each organ like this, and how the circulation can be from the heart to the different organs, and from the different organs it is collected and again sent to the heart. So this way also you can show the diagrammatic figure. And coming to the open type of circulatory system, hemolymph in the from the sinuses is carried, and they are particularly carried from the heart after the filtration, oxygenation. This can be divided into all the surrounding tissues and everything. But again, from the surrounding tissues, again it is coming back to the heart for the oxygenation. So here we say that the area lying between the tergum and the dorsal diaphragm, it contains an heart, and coming to the ventral or the perineural sinus, the area lying in between the sternum and the ventral diaphragm, it contains the nerve cord. So this particular, whatever the circulatory system we are studying, the visceral sinus, the area between the dorsal and the ventral diaphragm, it is a harbor of visceral organs like alimentary canal and gonads also. So when we see the transfer section, we will see all of them like this, including the trachea that is the main spiracle through which the oxygen enters into the insect and carried through the trachea into the dorsal vessel and the dorsal diaphragm region of the insect. And when we see this particular ventral region, which is of ventral nocord, the main hemocoel region, we will see this particular gut region also getting circulation with the help of the oxygenated blood. So this way also we can show the three particular circulation along with the trachea, how it is being carried into the different organs. This diagram shows you the detailed one. So coming to the what is the function of the dorsal blood vessel? It is the principal blood conducting organ in insects which remain closed at the posterior end and opens anteriorly into the head. So it is divided into an aorta and posterior heart extending throughout the length of the body. So like this, we see the diagrammatic figure where we are seeing the heart, how it is being extended. And after these hearts, these are called lateral hearts. And this particular aorta, how it is carrying the blood into the required oxygenation. So this way also we can show the most important way of showing the cephalic arteries and anterior region and how this particular blood vessel is suspended with the alary muscles. You can see in the diagrammatic figure. And when we talk about the aorta, the principal anterior dorsal blood vessel, the it is present in the thoracic region and opens into the head near the brain, and its attachment with the heart posteriorly is marked by the aortic valve. So here we will see the aortic valve where anteriorly sometime it gets divided into two also, which carries most of the hemolymph to the cephalic arteries of the head region, where we will see the antenna, antennules, maxillary, mandibles. Every function is will be of this particular system, like cephalic artery. So now coming to the heart, we say that the dorsal blood vessel is divided into two major parts, that is an posterior heart and the anterior aorta. So when we write, we say that the heart is being divided into the dorsal vessel, that is main vessel is dorsal vessel, which is divided into two major parts, posterior heart and the anterior aorta. So often restricted to the abdomen, but in cockroach, we say that it is extended up to the prothorax region, and that is opened with the lateral openings or the ostia. And this ostia, which is also helpful in carrying the circulation, we see the 9 pairs in the abdomen and 3 pairs in the thorax region. As such, we say that it is when we want to write about the heart, the posterior part of the dorsal blood vessel is extending up to the terminal end of the abdomen, and heart remains in position with the help of alary muscles attached to the tergum, where in this diagram we can see how the alary muscles are suspending this dorsal blood vessel. And we say that the the alary muscles that are attached to the tergum of the abdomen on one side and the dorsal diaphragm on the other side. So these alary muscles appear to be distributed fan-like over the heart. So the heart consists of number of chambers marked by the constrictions and the presence of the opening called incurrent ostia. As I said, this ostia will be openings which is carrying the oxygen into the um, body of the insect, and there will be 3 pairs in the thorax region and 9 pairs in the abdominal region. So same thing we have written. And the wall of the heart consists of muscles, and heart mainly functions as a pumping organ into the air. So accessory, any pulsatile organs will be there which are present at the base of the appendages, such as wings and the legs and the antenna also. They pulsate independently with the supply of the advocate blood to the appendages. So these organs will call it as an accessory pulsatile organs. So when we see the particular ostia which expands and contract during the cardiac systole and diastole respectively to allow the blood flow from the heart to the pericardial or the perivisceral sinuses. So the aorta, which is extending from the heart and opens behind and or the beneath the brain, is such that the process of blood circulation when we discuss here, the heart mainly functions as a pulsatile organ whose expansion and contraction leads to the blood circulation. So, what we are going to say is the diaphragm divides the dorsal pericardial sinus and the perivisceral sinus around the visceral organs. And by it takes place generally in an anti-clockwise manner, starting from the posterior end to the anterior end in the forward direction. And circulation of blood takes place in 2 phases due to the action of the alary muscles as well as the muscles of the walls of the heart. So the 2 phases are diastole and the systole, as we have already know. So diastole is during which expansion of the heart takes place, and systole means it's a contraction of the heart. So here when we see the heartbeat, the diastole is the expansion of heart when the alary muscles that are spread fan-like over the heart and connected to the tergum to get contracted. So in this particular diastole, it results in increase of volume of heart and decrease in the area of pericardial sinus. So whenever this area is being contracted, this creates a pressure on the blood in the pericardial sinus, forcing the blood to enter into the heart through the incurrent ostium. So this incurrent ostium allows the entry of blood from the sinus into the heart and prevents its backflow from the heart to the sinus. So like this, we will explain the diastole. In diastole, what is the uh, events which are occurring in the particular system. So coming to the systole. Actually, when we talk about the frequency of the heartbeat varies in insects from 14 beats per minute, like if it is in the larval stage, or it may be increased to the 150 beats in the fly stage, like if it is an adult stage. So we cannot say that is a stagnant one in everywhere. So even sometimes, comparatively, when we see if at a mosquito larva will have little bit slower heartbeats, that is 130, and if it is an adult, it may be reach up to the 150 beats. So coming to the contraction of the heart, in the contraction of the heart by the expansion of alveolar muscles as well as the contraction of the muscles of the heart wall. So this creates pressure on the blood and within heart leading to its forward movement into the aorta. So from the aorta, whenever the blood enters into the head and flows back, bathing the visceral organs in the visceral sinus and neural cord in the perineural sinus. So this in between the diastole and systole, there is a short period of rest, which is known as diastasis. And during the process of backward flow of blood, after entering into the visceral and perineural sinuses, blood flow to the posterior part of the body and into the pericardial sinus due to the undulating movements of the dorsal and ventral diaphragms. So like this, we can explain about the even the pulsatile circulation, where the basis of appendages like eggs and wings and antenna also helpful in the process of circulation. So the rate of heartbeat generally vary with the body temperature or physiological conditions of the body, and depending upon if it is in larval stage or it is in the adult stage also, the heartbeat varies in the insects. So coming to the blood color will be changing in the insects like green, yellowish, different types of hemocytes and due to the plasma. Green color may be due to the chlorophyll dissolved in the plasma, and red color is due to the hemoglobin in chironomous stage of the insect. So whenever we see the total body weight, the age of the insect, it depends upon how the protein, sugars, lipids, phosphates, pigments, uric acid, we varying in the particular hemolymph, and the insect blood of phytophagous insects will be rich in automatically, that is potassium, whereas that carnivores, if they are blood sucking, rich in sodium. So specific gravity of the blood also varies in insects from 1 to 1.6, and pH of blood generally varies from 6 to 7. The blood sugar of insects is called as anthrachlose, and blood lacks the vitamin K. So even when we say about the functions what are done by the hemolymph in the blood of the insects, the transport of minerals or the food materials, blood stores water for the tissues, helps during the process of molting for splitting up the old cuticle. So this is the main thing what the process of molting will takes place in insects. And encapsulation, where we see the in the mosquito, whenever it bites a person with the malarial sporozoites. To protect from the large metazoan parasites, the hemocytes of the blood become aggregated around the foreign body, forming a capsule of 2 to 3 layers. This also leads to the death of the foreign bodies due to the lack of oxygen supply. Even the blood has phagocytosis to get protection from the microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, and fungi. The hemocytes completely engulf the foreign body and gets autolyzed. So this is the principal function of the hemocytes. So immunity, when we take the immunity, blood gives immunity by producing the antibodies to restrict the further functions, and connective tissue formation, where the blood also provides the lipoproteins that are necessary for the formation of connective tissues. And there may be a coagulation where hemocytes extend pseudopodia, which forms a cellular network over the wounded site. And even the plasmocytes also coagulate, forming a plug over the wound. We also see hemocytes are arranged in multi-layered sheets over the wounded site, thus helping the wound healing also in the insects. And we also see the detoxification, whereas the hemocytes are capable of detoxifying the toxic chemicals. Insects get the ability to resist the toxic effects of the chemicals. So we see that the reflex bleeding, that is a phenomena where emission of blood occurs through the pores whenever there are slits of the cuticle, which mainly help the insects for getting protection from their natural enemies. So coming to this, the number types of hemocytes and the functions of hemolymph, as we have discussed, the main parts what we have been discussing, all the things are very, very important, like encapsulation, detoxification, wound healing, hemostasis, and it also say that we can also say that lubricant. Here it is not written, but lubricant, allowing the movement of the internal structures, and it also acts as hydraulic medium. And also we say that heat transfers, many of the things what we can include in this is protection mainly, the phenyl oxidase system is the one which is an cascade to produce the chemical events and ultimately kill the invader. And that secretion and formation of other tissue is also main important role, which the hemocytes will hemocytes will activated the prothoracic glands before molting, and hemocytes are the ones which are also involved in the formation of the fat in the body. So we can write all these things in the functions of the hemolymph. Coming to the hemocytes, how many number of hemocytes we see is about 20,000 permeable. So chemical composition also we can write many things other than this also, like inorganic constituents, what are present, like copper, aluminium, zinc, nitrogenous waste mainly we can write, which are excreted through the malphizian tubules. That waste also may include urea, allantoic acid, ammonia, etc., which we are going to discuss in the next slide. After completion of this circulatory system, we will move on to the excretory system. So, if you are well understood with this particular system, we can move on to the excretory system. So, the main parts you have to remember is about the dorsal blood vessel, how important it is playing in one's circulatory system of the insect, and how many types of open and closed circulatory systems are there. And we can also discuss about the aorta, how aorta is the anterior part of the blood vessel, which is playing an important role, carrying the blood with the two cephalic arteries. And the hearts also, these hearts are already suspended with the alveolar muscles. So the main functions of the pumping of the heart and how the ostia are helpful in carrying the oxygen into the body. And 9 pairs of ostia are present in the abdomen region. 3 pairs of ostia are present in the thoracic region. Like that, we can mention and how incurrent ostia are helpful in bringing the oxygen into the blood body for the to help the circulation in the insect. So you can explain about the systole and diastole. If you have no doubts, we can move on to the excretory system. Are you there?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
madam.
Ma'am, will you share these PPTs in our group, ma'am? It will be
But
helpful for us.
your textbook content will be more.
Yes, ma'am. As this is
Keeping
the
the
exam time, we
textbook and
can't.
some
It is
points which are
easy for us
important,
to
I'm
minimize.
doing in the slide.
Yeah.
I think it will not be helpful for you to write the essay answer. No?
Means we will elaborate the answer, ma'am. Means by seeing these points, so we can remember the answer.
Okay. I'll say.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So whatever the excretion which happens in the insect body to maintain the constant internal environment, that is called as a homeostasis, where we see that particular homeostasis is the main thing which has to be keeping the metabolic nitrogenous metabolic waste and the regulation of salts and water to be eliminated from the body, so that the insect can lead an life to maintain the balance of all these. So the Malpighian tubules are discovered by Marcello Malpighi in the 17th century, and this most of the rectum is also most of the function of the excretion. The rectum also plays an important role in reabsorption of salt and water. What is here the main thing what we want to say is the whatever the water content which is consumed by the insect is very less. So in that whatever the seed or the food it will be taking, from that water content how much is present, even though that is utilized during the excretion also, the rectal papillae in the digestive system again try to reabsorb from the nitrogenous waste also the water content which is present in the nitrogenous waste. So major types of Malpighian tubule hindgut system will be little bit varies from one insect to another insect, like orthopteran, hemipteran, coleopteran, lepidopteran. Like Orthoptera is the cockroach, Hemiptera is about the honeybees, Coleoptera about the beetles, and Lepidoptera about the butterflies. So this system will have the little bit change in the structure of the Malpighian tubules. So that we will see it, and as we start the excretory system, we say that the organs of the insect body are involved in the elimination of excess or unwanted materials, either toxic or not useful, together known as an excretory system. So these toxic materials are nitrogenous products of metabolism, mainly ammonia and pigments and the salts. For the efficient maintenance of water and the ionic balance in the hemolymph, the waste products of the metabolism are to be removed or eliminated. So these waste material may be in solid or semi-solid, liquid or gaseous form. So the principal excretory product in gaseous form is CO2, and liquid form is honeydew, like the solid form is uric acid, and semi-solid form is like allantoin. So in the so many forms, we see the excretory material.
Ma'am, what is allantoin?
Allantoin means uh, means the composition you are asking, no? Ammonia.
Yes,
Ammonia.
ammonia. Okay. Okay.
And, when we see this, the reabsorption, whatever it is taking place after this particular colon, this rectal papillae will help in the reabsorption of the water. So this also can be shown like this. And usually there will be a variation in the Malpighian tubules, the how that particular tubules are being convoluted into the body cavity, like 250 or more in some insects, or if at all we take the cockroach, there may be around 60 tubules, Malpighian tubules we will see attached to the midgut region and hindgut region. In between this particular regions, these Malpighian tubules are present attached to the digestive system. So that is the most important thing what you have to understand. The excretory malphizian tubules are not present separately. The malphizian tubules are attached to the digestive system of midgut and hindgut region between the midgut and the hindgut region. Like I have shown you, hindgut region means colon and rectum will be there. Midgut region, whatever the system will be there, that midgut region and hindgut region, in between them, this malphizian tubules are present, that you have to understand. So this here, you can get an idea how after the crop, which stores the food, this one. Last class we have discussed about this system. So here we are seeing the malphizian tubules, like in cockroach they are around 60, or in other insects they may be vary to 250 also. So these are discovered by the Italian scientist. So we have named that malphizian tubules on his name, Marcello Malpighi, in 1669, and Haeckel again named them in 1820, like Malpighi into Malpighian tubules, long tubular structures which open proximally in between midgut and hindgut and closed distally, floating freely in the hemolymph like in transparent tubules. So the Malpighian tubules are vary in their shape and size. They are of not same size. They may be simple or branched also. Their number also varies from 2 to 250 depending on the insect. So the shape of the tubules may be sac-like, papillae-like, or branch-like, in depending on the insect. Malphidian tubules are totally absent in amphids and columbola insects. Columbola means the dung insect. So in some of the insects, such as caterpillars and coleopterans, the distal end of the malphizian tubules get reattached to the alimentary canal by opening into the rectum of the hindgut. This is called as an cryptonephridial condition. So the cryptonephridial arrangement is concerned mainly with the reabsorption of water from the rectum. So the cells of malphizian tubules also produce enzymes, acid and alkaline phosphatases, dehydrogenase, succinic, that is lipases also, vitamins like thiamine, ascorbic acid, etc. So coming to the function of the malphizian tubules, as we have only talk about the cryptonephridial arrangement of the coleopterian beetles. There are also gymnonephridial arrangement, where we'll see the gymnonephridial arrangement of the malphizian tubules, where distal ends are freely and not attached to the body cavity. And orthopteran, hemipteran comes under this particular gymnonephridial arrangement of the tubules. So what is the main function of the malphizian tubules is to maintain the homeostasis, that is, help in the process of excretion or removal of the waste products in order to regulate the internal body environment by maintaining the iconic and water balance. So in case of glowworms also, the distal end tubules produce the light energy, and also they are helpful in storage of calcium necessary for the process such as hardening the puparium. In case of amphidion, the secretions of the tubules produced stalked eggs. So in case of spittle bugs, spittle around the immature stages is also known as an malphizian tubule secretion. So through the process of coming to the process of excretion, integument is also playing an important role to the process of molting, where insects, along with the molting process, remove the waste nitrogenous products,
Excuse me,
and
ma'am.
they
Ma'am,
are
once again,
deposited in the exuvate. Yes, ma'am.
hello, ma'am. Can you explain once again this Malpighian functions of Malpighian tubule? It's little bit confusing.
Functions. Okay, okay. So this functions include the process of excretion or removal of waste products in order to regulate the internal body environment by maintaining the ionic and water balance. So this, uh, in case of like glowworms, the distal ends of the tubules also produce the light energy. And this particular system functions when we talk help in the storage of calcium necessary for the process of such as hardening the puparium.
What is this puparium, ma'am?
Pupa formation, pupil,
Okay.
pupa. There will be a stage of pupa, no? So in that stage, the pupa formation will be always, we will find the cockroach pupa also lying here
Oh,
and there, brownish colored ones.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
In case of amphid loin also, the secretions of the tubule produce the starved eggs. And in case of spittle bugs also, spittle around the immature stages is also malphizian tubule secretion occurs around the bugs. Yes, still more functions are there which I'll explain. So along with that particular tubules, we also say that integument is also playing an important role by the body wall deposition in the insects where respiration occurs through the body wall. CO2 is removed through the integument as a waste product, which is we are calling it as an cutaneous respiration. Tracheal system is also involved where the respiratory tubes, the trachea which are distributed throughout the body are eliminating the CO2 through the spiracles. And in alimentary canal, the gut of the insects also play major role in excretion by removing the unwanted materials, dead cells formed during the enzyme secretion, that is holocrine, and intima layer during molting. So like this, we are saying even the rectum is also playing an important role in the excretion by reabsorbing the water from the feces. So different environmental conditions pose different salts and water problems for the insects. So we are saying that terrestrial forms are constantly faced with the tendency to lose the water through evaporation. So they are actually generally dependent on the ingested food for needed water and salt. What we see is usually the insects don't drink the water. So whatever the food which contain the water and salt is the thing which are totally that diet and helpful in the insects, and they are excreting whatever they are excreting like a dry powdery pellet. Similarly, if at all they are fresh insects, large amounts of water is absorbed through the integument and by the gut along with the ingested food. Is also must excrete the water and at the same time conserve the inorganic ions which are helpful for the body. So even if at all we talk about the marine insects also, there will be an constantly conservation of water, that high amount of salt with the food, whatever is enters into the body should be eliminated in the urine after the regulated reabsorption from the rectum. So like this, we see the mainly factors which are uh, playing an important role like integument permeability, food selection, habitat selection. These are all involved in the regulation of salt and water in the insects. So even if we take the example of mosquito larvae, chloride ions are taken into the hemolymph by the way of papillae surrounding the anus. So this is an active process occurring against the high concentration gradient. In addition, these papillae are also responsible for sodium and potassium and water uptake also. So we are seeing the insects are able to absorb the water from the drop on the cuticle also. And this passage of water, since the water passes in more quickly than whatever the feed they take, so the insect is able to excrete the excessive amounts of both ions to maintain the homeostasis of the hemolymph. So we are able to say that the detoxified chemicals and toxic chemicals all are being eliminated, and the transport mechanism of the Malpighian tubules is induced in facilitating the rapid excretion of the toxin from the insect's hemolymph. So rapid excretion has to be takes place means the what we are seeing is the role of Malpighian tubules is more, and some times what we see is some insects by keeping the toxicants inside the body also they are benefited. This is given as an example like for grasshopper belonging to the species of xenocell is able to have an advantage when it keeps the toxicants inside the body. In the locust insect, we also see the chloride transport stimulating hormone also being stimulated, and that will be helpful in the regulating both ions and the water balance in the rectum of this particular locust insect. So we also see that functions of the excitatory neurotransmitters will have an effect on the midgut and the visceral muscles. So depending on that particular hormone secretion to the midgut will help out in the proper excretion of the insect. So other than this particular description, what we were talking about, the ions and all that, we also see the nephrocytes also playing an important role. So these are the special cells that are distributed in the body cavity and scattered. And nephrocytes are the cells that take up the foreign chemicals of relatively high molecular weight, which malphidians tubules may be incapable of dealing with. So there are two types of nephrocytes: dorsal or pericardial nephrocytes on either side of the heart in the pericardial sinus, present in immature and adult stages of most of the insects. And we also see the ventral nephrocytes arranged as a chain below the foregut and attached to its two ends of the salivary glands, that is in the dipterous larvae. So ventral nephrocytes, when we talk about the ventral nephrocytes, they are arranged as a chain below the foregut and attached by its two ends of the salivary glands. Dipterous larvae, nephrocytes help in removal of ammonia, chloride dyes, and colloidal particles. So other than this also, the other excretory organs which play important role also we will discuss. And after the nephrocytes, we also see the oinocytes, usually present in the abdominal spiracles, and they rise from the ectoderm or the hypodermis. Other than these ventral nephrocytes, we also come across the oinocytes. These are large cells and are usually present near the abdominal spiracles, 9 abdominal spiracles. They arise from the ectoderm or the hypodermis, and these cells are thought to secrete the cuticulin, layer of epicuticulin, and in cockroach, surface grease which covers the integument is believed to be involved in the excretion. So when we touch the integument or the body coverings of the cuticle, we see this particular cuticulin secretion, and that cuticulin secretion, how it advantage as are there to the students. So these cells throughout a secret cuticulin layer of epicuticle in cockroach surface, grease which covers the integument is believed to be involved in excretion. Now coming to the urate cells. Some of the fat body cells which store urea or the uric acid in the form of granules are known as urate cells. So preserved uric acid can be utilized subsequently, and these are present when the malphizian tubules are absent or may become non-functional in some of the insects. These are present when malphizian tubules are absent or maybe become non-functional. So in some of the insects such as cockroach, the waste material in the form of urea or uric acid is stored throughout its life in the fat body cells without any harmful effect. So this phenomenon of storage of urea or uric acid in the fat body cells is called as an storage excretion, which is useful for supply of nitrogen when the insect feeds on the nitrogen deficit food. So urate cells are over labial glands. In the uh, along with this, all the whatever we have discussed, the labial glands are also playing an important role in the excretion. That is, these are seen in Columbola, Dipleura, and Thysanora. And these are seen in, they consist of sac-like structures called ampulla that leads to a long coiled labyrinth that open at the base of the labium in the head region. So these glands help to remove ammonia. And along with these labial glands, we also find the chloride cells. These are the cells distributed on the body of aquatic insects such as larva or mayfly or stonefly. So they absorb ions from the salt water and then excrete into the strong medium, surrounding medium to compensate. So whichever the chloride cells are surrounding medium to compensate changes in the ionic concentration of the hemolymph. So here ends the excretory system with all these other than the malphizian tubules like integument, tracheal system, alimentary canal role, nephrocytes role, oenocytes role, urate cells role, labial gland cells role, chloride cells role. So regarding the excretion, if you have any doubts, ask me. Urea usually commonly present in the urine of insects in very small quantity. If at all we say the CC fly, two amino acids, arginine and histidine, from the blood of the host are excreted. No doubts.
No doubts, ma'am.
Are you keeping your textbook in front?
Right now, no, ma'am.
We'll discuss the respiration. So as a part of respiration, we have discussed about the circulation. While doing the circulation, whatever the respiration we have been discussing, that is about the ostia and trachea. So here also we will say that the intake of oxygen and removal of carbon dioxide are accomplished in most of the insects by spiracles and the trachea. So this system is called as a breathing system or tracheal system or ventilatory system also. So the spiracles are large external openings for the entry of the air into the body. So as we have been discussing, 3 to 2 pairs are present in the thoracic region, 8 to 9 pairs of abdominal spiracles are present in the abdomen region of the insects. So each of the spiracle sends a tracheal bands, the branch. So here, spiracles are the lateral external openings for the entrance of air, and each of the spiracles sends a tracheal branch, and this tracheal repeatedly they extend to all parts of the body, and the end very close to cells in a very fine branch of tracheoles, which I'll show the figure. We see that principal sites of the gas exchange happen to be there in the tracheoles. So the end very close to cells in a very fine tracheoles that are the principal sites of the gas exchange, and the spiracles vary from simple holes to highly modified structures having filters and valves for regulating the opening. So during the environment, these tubes communicate with the outside through the spiracles, and that the intima is thrown into a series of usually spiral folds around the lumen of the tinidia. So this particular things will provide strength to the trachea. So intima layer will play an important role for keeping the spherical open. So the spiracles vary from simple holes to highly modified structures having filters and valves for regulating the opening. So during the certain environmental stresses, the spiracles may become closed also in the fumigation. During ectasis also, all the tracheal linings are shed, but the old tracheoles remain along with the new ones. For example, when we take the fifth instar larva, like whenever it is in, we will see in the silkworm life cycle 5 instars. Egg to first instar, egg will molt and form first instar, second, third, fourth, fifth. So coming to the fifth instar of whatever the moltings will be happening. In the fifth instar larva only, it has to undergo the molting process, and that from that onwards, it needs to be undergoing into the cocoon reeling will be there. So in them, we see the 1.5 million tracheoles. This is an important point which can be included. So this respiration, whatever we are be talking about, that the trachea typically ends with an tracheal end cell, and the tracheoblast is the one which gives rise to several tracheoles that are all the part of this particular cell. So when we see the air sacs, which are playing an important role of the tracheal dilations, also vary in size. The tinidia, which are sometimes if they are absent or poorly developed, so there will be a more oxygen demand and there is an collapse of the pump very easily if the air sacs are not properly formed. So seeing the air sacs also will play an important role. The major function is to increase the tidal air in the body and the presence of large air sacs in the body cavity of the terrestrial insect help in flight also. So to some extent, the cockroach also can fly, and this will bring the lot of the body cavity flight, will reducing the specific gravity. So when we talk about the spiracles, there are many types of spiracles we see. The particular lateral in position, and we say that spiracles are the external openings of trachea, and the exceptions have been there in the insects. Like in Diplura, we see the maximum number of spiracles found in the insect, that is 10 pairs also. As usual, we are talking about the 8 to 9 in many number of insects. So usually we also find two thoracic and 8 abdominal. Polypneustic, oligopneustic, and apneustic. These are the three types of spiracles which are present in the insect. First one is polypneustic. Here, the 8 pairs of spiracles, that may be holopneustic, that is 10 pairs of spiracles. So coming to the peripneustic spiracles, 9 pairs of spiracles, one thoracic region and 8 abdominal in some larvae which are having an larval form. Hemipneustic spiracles, where one will be of thoracic region and 7 abdominal. Example of this is fly larvae. So like that, in polypneustic type, we see holopneustic with the 10 pairs, peripneustic with the 9 pairs, and amphipneustic with the 2 pairs of spiracles. So when we see the oligopneustic, one or two pairs of functional spiracles, that is amphineustic, with the two pairs of spiracles in the one mesothoracic and one post-abdominal, we will see. That's all. So this larvae of the moth fly species, and in them only, if at all they are metapneustic, one pair of functional spiracles, mosquito larvae. So mechanism of respiration, when we talk about the diffusion, active ventilation, and elimination of CO2, and how it is carried in aquatic insects, and how they can be able to survive the larval forms of the mosquito with the respiratory siphon. So diffusion means the whatever the air which enters into the body, that will be taken by the blood tissues or body tissues to maintain the sufficient oxygen to the body tissues. It is a passive form of ventilation where the trachea and the tracheoles receive, and CO2 is left out into the environment. And coming to the active ventilation, the larger and active insects passive ventilation does not bring adequate amount of oxygen to the tissues. So in the insects of air sacs, whenever it is found, the air sacs present and larger trachea are often ventilated by the tissues, and peristaltic waves over the abdomen, and dorsal flattening of the abdomen movements will be helping out in the inspiration and expiration process of gases. So like this, we see the active ventilation, diffusion, and we also see the elimination of CO2, which is getting diffused about 35 times more than the oxygen. So because of this, CO2 is much more likely to be eliminated from the body through the tracheal linings, and through the integument also will be the CO2 produced by the respiration is eliminated via trachea and tracheoles. So that we is in the intersegmental membranes, through the intersegmental membranes also, through the spiracles also. So when we take about the respiration in aquatic insects, they dissolve the oxygen which is dissolved in water, they'll take up. And use of aerial oxygen is also available to the some insects which are living on the um, living in the borders of the pond, or so respiratory siphon, we yesterday only. So when we want to discuss about the aquatic insects means when we discuss about the larvae of mosquitoes, siphon which is present, sometimes even we see the physical gills in the some aquatic insects which carry the air and replenish the oxygen without the proper replenishment. So the oxygen is reserved and used up. We also see the physical gills which are present in some insects will help out. Plastron which is present in the insect when it is submerged, usually the plastron, a thin layer of gas which is held firmly in place by the tiny hydrofuge hairs are also very well. Pigments, when we see the respiratory pigments, the hemolymph does not generally function as an oxygen carrier, but in some, like whatever the bloodworms, chironomoid larvae, we find the hemolymph little bit acting as an the pigment which is present in them will be hemoglobin, which is acting as a respiratory pigment. Even we say that the ventilation involves the muscular and the nervous system for the activation and the coordination of the muscular movements. And ventilation is an oscillating system regulated by the specific ganglia. So each ganglion of the nervous system and the muscles, every movement of the ventilatory movements, whatever happens in the opening and closure of the spiracles, will play and control center over all these movements. And this particular one makes the control of respiration through the central nervous system possible in the insects. So whenever you want to write about the respiratory system in the insect, we'll first finally describe about the trachea that directly transport the oxygen to the parts of the body, and and it does not use the circulatory system as the vehicle of the body, And we also say there is no the mainly the spiracles which are closing and opening will be helping out in the gaseous exchange taking place directly from the environment via the integument. So we'll describe like that. And we also how this particular spiracles are able to uh, protected without collapsing, how the strength will be given by the intima layer. And we also say that trachea, about the trachea and the tracheoles, and also about the air sacs. And we also describe the spiracles, polypneustic, oligopneustic, and apneustic spiracles. How the closing and opening of the spiracles movements will help out in the insect to be um, associated with the muscles. And some insects they have a near the spiracle sieve plate like structure, sieve plate like structure, which saves them from the entering of the dust into the spiracles. So next class we will discuss about the other systems.
Okay, madam.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you, madam.
Okay.